Back in Tennessee, strawberries ripened in the fields, and Ray County High School prepared for graduation. But hard times had come to Dayton. The once prosperous coal and iron mines were closing down. A New Yorker named George Rapelier had been hired to manage the bankruptcy. Rapelier became a friend of John Scopes and began attending services at a liberal Protestant church.
And there he'd run into a minister who was both an evolutionist and a Christian. And at that time, Rapelier began combining the two views and thought you could be a Christian and also be an evolutionist. So when the Tennessee legislature considered the anti-evolution laws, he wrote letters to his legislator and also to the Chattanooga Times arguing against passage of that law. He loved to make fun of it. Then, one day in May in 1925, he saw in the newspaper the ACLU offer to defend any school teacher who was willing to challenge that law in court.
Rapelier had an inspiration. Why not bring the trial to Dayton and give the town some excitement and a much-needed economic boost? He rushed off to Robinson's drugstore.
This is the spot where Robinson's drugstore stood, right next to the big Aqua Hotel. And this is where, around the table in Robinson's drugstore, the Scopes trial originated.
Now, Robinson at the time was chairman of the local school board, and his downtown drugstore had a soda fountain that served as the watering hole for the business and professional elite of town back then. Those were the days of Prohibition, of course, so I think the strongest thing they could drink was Coca-Cola. He ran down there and told him his scheme.
Rapelier suggested they take up the ACLU's challenge and arrest one of Dayton's own teachers for teaching evolution. They would have a trial. It would be covered in the newspapers. People would come to Dayton from miles around.
And the thought grew there that we could do that and help advertise our town and bring in industry. And maybe we'll get back on our feet.
They needed a teacher willing to go along with their plan. John Scopes, an easygoing bachelor, seemed the perfect choice. Scopes was playing tennis when a messenger found him.
He arrived at the drugstore, they sat him down, and here around him were all the town officials.
Later, when the Scopes trial became world famous, the drugstore conspirators posed for the cameras. George Rapelier, who set things in motion, F.E. Robinson, owner of the drugstore, and the defendant, John Thomas Scopes. Scopes agreed to be arrested because he wanted to help his boss. After all, F.E. Robinson was also president of the school board. But Scopes had another reason for agreeing to the plan. As he later wrote, "I knew that sooner or later someone would have to stand up for the stifling of freedom that the Anti-Evolution Act represented." Rapelier called a sheriff, and they swore out a warrant for John Scopes' arrest. While Scopes returned to his tennis game, the school superintendent called a reporter for the Chattanooga Times. "Something has happened," he said, "that's going to put Dayton on the map."